Namaste, Galactic family. Welcome back to the channel Indigo Angel. Come on into this dimension and come on into a special show that I wanted to put together and introduce all of my viewers and all of my subscribers to my dear sister Raquel Marshall. As we found each other so synchronistically and so much in alignment. And we have been doing some shows together more recently and lately where we've been really advocating for truths that are going on in the world and, you know, speaking on injustices and just, really kind of stepping to the plate and being able to provide a voice, a message, authenticity, um, grounded perspective, that I think others may be looking for or needing at this time. And so I love to come together and support my strong sisters and women who are able to really step into their voice, into their courage, and speak their truth. And so, yeah, you've been like a superstar. I mean, you're so smart. You're so philosophical. I think I called you a philosopher earlier on the show that we did, and you just have a lot of really deep insight. Um, so I'm just going to quickly read your introduction to everyone watching, so that way they kind of have an idea of who you are, um, and we'll talk about some of these amazing things that you have going on here. So, Raquel considers herself to be a yogini, and she's a star seed, she's a light worker, and she's assisting beings evolving and progressing towards the fifth dimension. She does this through her work with one-on-one healing sessions, offers an online course that guides and attunes you to your higher self energies, reestablishing, repairing severed ties with the higher self and the creator of all that is. She also offers one-on-one sessions with ascended masters like Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, Hathor, and Horus, and the collective of three. And she is an author. So she's written two books, and the first one is called All That Is, Progressing to the Fifth Dimension, written in collaboration with multidimensional beings known as the Collective of Three, which I'm sure you're going to explain that to us. Oh, beings from Arcturus, Pleiades, in the 12th dimension. And the second book she's written was written in collaboration with Yeshua bin Joseph, also known as Jesus, and is called The Voice of an Angel. So thank you so much for coming and talking with us today. How are you doing? And yeah, you're just amazing.
Thank you, Indy, so much. I'm so grateful to be here and so appreciative of you and your guidance. You've given me so much in the last little while that we've known each other, and it's just been so incredible. I've come to know you through the grid work that we've done together, through your courses. I was actually following you many years now. I can't remember how I stumbled upon you. Maybe, I don't know, somewhere along the line we crossed paths, and I was just taken in by your energy and your beautiful a way of dealing with things and your depth of knowledge. My goodness, it's just so incredible. You have this incredible way of presenting these very difficult um, topics, and for the layperson to understand, it's just so beautiful to get to know you and just work beside you on these incredible little journeys that we've been doing of late. So I'm truly grateful to be here. And thank
Oh
you
my
for
gosh.
supporting me on this journey as well with my work. It's just been so great to be, on this journey with these interdimensional beings. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Wow, that was really heartfelt. I really do feel like we're kindred spirits. Um, and I just think it's so amazing that you're doing amazing things. You're grounded in your work, in your writing, your books, you're an author. Um, where do you find your inspiration for the books that you've written? I think I'm really interested in the one of Yeshua bin Joseph, the voice of an angel. So what happened? You connected with Christ's energy and then you channeled his messages, or how did this writing?
Yeah, it's very strange how all of this came about, right? My family background, I was born in India, and my mom belonged to the Catholic faith. My dad was belonged to the Protestant faith, and so we were brought up as Protestants. And then when my mom and dad split up, I was about 14 at the time. Um, my mom went through the process of getting us um, baptized in the Catholic Church, and so went through that process of getting my first Holy Communion and all of that. But I never really felt that connection, you know. And so I always felt that there was something missing. It didn't feel sincere in my heart, you know, going to church and praying, and it just felt somehow there was something missing. And so right from that young age, I was always searching. And then fast forward to about when I was 22, 23, somewhere in there, I stumbled upon Buddhism and discovered Tara, green Tara, and you know, went into that whole meditative realm of what Buddhism has to offer, and that grounded me in that energy. But still, I still felt that I was missing that connection somehow to the divine, if you will. And then I went off to Salt Spring Island and I lived as a yogi there for 2 years, and I managed the yoga center. And during that time, I also took on the yoga teachers training course. And so it was during that time I stumbled on this course that offered me, you know, to learn how to do automatic writing. And so I did that, and I stumbled upon, you know, into this realm of energy that came through my writing, you know. And I was just so overwhelmed at first. I was excited. I was like, you know, nothing like this had ever happened to me. Like I knew there was something greater and bigger than me, right? But I hadn't experienced energy in this way. And so I was furiously writing and getting all of these downloads. And it came to me in the form of like just scribbles and drawings, you know? They were just vibrant drawings and just art on pieces of paper, but it was like drawings of scapes from another world, you know? Anyway, I'm getting to the point. But it went on for about 5 days, and this being eventually we started like communicating through yes or no answers. We established that, you know, and so I understood that it was from Saturn. So, but after about 4 or 5 days, that energy shifted, and it became like I could sense a very dark energy coming through. It was no longer that, you know, that energy that was helping me see what his or her environment was like, you know, just the drawings of the scapes that he or she was showing to me. And somehow this being um, accelerated my clairaudience. I could hear things in those realms. It sort of fine-tuned that for me, and so I could hear these other beings that came in and somehow overtook this being's energy and infiltrated that energy. And at that time, I had no clue who the Draco were or what the Draco was, you know? And so it ended up being a collective of 5 Draco beings that came and infiltrated my space with this being that I was channeling through this automatic writing experience. And so they came and they gave me these fantastic impressions of themselves, and they were very loving, and I don't know, it just felt so strange to me. And I was like, wait a minute, is this how it's supposed to be, you know, connecting with the other realms? And I was like, I didn't have any markers or anybody that I could talk to about it, right? So I ran with it for a few days and said, okay, let's see where this takes me, right? I was in that, you know, in that energy of, you know, just being surprised and happy that I was making this connection. But what was happening at night was that they were infiltrating my being, my body, and they were like, I have a feeling they were like harvesting my eggs because it felt deep in my womb, you know? that
Mm.
they were doing something. And so I got in touch with friends of mine who were energy healers, and I said, "Look, this is happening to me, and I don't feel comfortable with it. I need to get this energy out of my reality." And so this being that I contacted in the US, this friend of mine, she got in touch with me and she said, "Okay, we'll channel Kuan Yin and get her to clear your field, your energy field, and um, get rid of these energies." We did 2 sessions. It felt like I had gotten rid of them, but they still found a way to get back. And so then she somehow managed to channel Yeshua, and then Yeshua came on board. Um, excuse me. And then there was a healing session with Yeshua, and he brought in um, Mother Mary, and it was like they formed this, this energy field around me. Like there was one of them on the top, and then there were like four of them taking in all four corners and just shielding me, and they got rid of these five energies that were sort of within my field. And that was my introduction to Yeshua. I was thrown in the deep end. But
Wow.
it was so strange, Indy, that whole period. It feels like I died and went off to some place. It felt very strange. It was like living in this in between world. Um, so after I finished that, it took me a few days to like gather myself and my energy just to go over the trauma of what happened with that entire engagement. And even this meeting with Yeshua, I was like, how do I know that you are not one of them? I was in that non-trusting sort of situation. Like I didn't want to trust anything that was coming from a place that I didn't know or didn't understand. And so it took me like a good, I would say, 4 to 5 months to get that trust built up with this being, and for him to prove to me that he was actually who he said he was.
Mm.
And so it just developed that way. He would come to me and tell me stories and give me instances of just things that he developed with me, like to prove that what he was doing and what he was saying was true. Like he would tell me something, and then 2 days later that would happen or come true, or just things like that. It was impossible not to believe in what was happening, right? And so yeah, we continued in this fashion for a while, and then he told me that we were destined to write a book together. And I was like, really? And I'll tell you something after this. So then he started talking about, the voice of an angel and this and that. But I'll just backtrack a bit. When I landed in Vancouver in 2008, I went to a psychic just for the heck of it. I was like, let me just go and see what this woman has to say. So I went in for a reading, and after a few minutes, she was like, "Have you written your book?" I'm like, "What book?" And at that time, I wasn't even considering any writing. I hadn't written a single line, that I would consider as a writing or anything of that matter. And so she said, "You're supposed to write a book, and it's called The Voice of an Angel." I was like, "Really?" Anyway, I filed that off in the back of my head, right? And so when Yeshua came to me, like almost 10 years later, lo and behold, he said, "This is the book we're meant to write." And so, yeah, it was all very synchronistic, and it just all happened. But I finally got to write it just like finish it just last year, I believe. Yeah, it was 2023. Um, it finally got finished. So it took a while. We took a break, and all the COVID rubbish happened. And so, yeah, in the meantime, I wrote the first book before I wrote this one. So it was like half and half. But the first one that I wrote with the collective of three came about quite quickly. I finished that in like 4 months. But The Voice of an Angel took a bit longer.
Well, it sounds amazing. I've been connecting more and more with Christ energy as well, and been trying to find more literature in which supports like his true message, his true teachings, his true word. And I think it's, so important for all of humanity on the earth to learn his teachings. I don't feel like it has to be through religion. It doesn't have to be through any sort of constructs in which make you feel enslaved to any Templar systems or dogmatic systems, but to just know that because it's really rooted in like compassion and tolerance, and I think it's literally the it's like the manual to know how to become the best character, to become the best self, to become as close as you can to being like the creator. Um, so I think that's very inspirational. I want to go back to the Draco experience really quickly, though, before maybe we talk more about Yeshua. But
Sure.
you seem to know a lot about the Draconian beings. When you came on the show and we were talking about stuff, I was really impressed with how much you knew, and that had to come through your experience with having to clear them yourself. So um, maybe, yeah, what can you speak to about that? And um, what do you kind of know about them as a whole in terms of the globe and what how do they do this and why do they do this? Why do they infiltrate people like that?
Um, I don't know if I can answer the question why. I'll try though. Yeah, so since that experience, it's like they almost cleared the channel for me to recognize their essence in a way, in knowing who they are, as a tribe, or as a civilization, right? Even to this day, if I come across a Draco, like I can't see them, I can just hear them, but for some reason I can also smell them. And I tell you, Indy, it's the most horrific smell. It's like a cross between smelling like a skunk and almost like a stale smell of marijuana. It's just so weird, it's just, yeah. So I know instantly, like, yep, these guys are about, or they've been here, and then I start lighting my incense and just clearing the space.
Mm.
But it's as if that incident like opened me up to that energy, right? And so once I got online with Yeshua and his team, they sort of encouraged me to make this my mission, because I had confronted them and I had, in a way, slayed that dragon, right? So they encouraged me and said, you know what, you could probably become like a grid worker just to clear the energies in the field as it related to these beings. And so a few years after I had left the island, I went off to India for about a year. I took a break, and when I came back, I was looking for a job, and that was just at the onset of COVID. I couldn't find a job, and I I was like, okay, let me just do something, that'll just get me a few bucks to get me started. And so I started driving for Uber, just delivering food. And so it was during my drives, it became like a grid worker mission, every single day became like a grid worker mission. And so wherever I drove, I was basically clearing the roads and all the localities wherever I went of all of these energies. And so it
Yeah.
was really quite fascinating. And so the beings that came to me through this Yeshua connection, they would come to me, and it was like they were my eyes, and they would tell me, like, okay, there's a group of
Mm.
them here, there's a cluster here, this is what we're doing. And so they found a sort of a method in which they could like almost surround them with the light and then just take them off planet. And then they were like dealing with them off planet. I don't know if you know about the evolutionary cycle, right? So there's this larger evolutionary cycle for you, me, for everybody, right from from the plants to the birds to all living things, right? So this evolutionary cycle, as created by the creator, all of us fall into a certain hierarchy, if you will, right? I guess from me, for example, say the day I was sparked into existence, I go through this cycle of evolution of my soul, right? And so these beings, they have essentially taken the scenic route, right? For the evolution of their soul, right? That's how I see it anyway. So instead of following the creator's evolution of a soul, like, you progress. Of course, you have your experiences, whether positive or negative, but you eventually, like, say you move from the third to the fourth to the fifth dimension, and then, you go on to the higher realms, and then you become a light being, and then, you pick whatever mission you want to do, and so on and so forth, right? But these beings, they went against the creator's ideals, if you will, and went off on their own journey, right? And that was the separation that took place. And so, where was I going with this? Yeah. Um, so yeah, sorry, I know where I was going. So anyway, when these beings are collected on these grid missions that I go on, they're sort of taken off planet and they're put back. They're given a choice. They're either put back to where they were separated, or they go back to like dust, if you will, like a no thing, right? And so they have to start their existence all over again. Um, yeah, so basically that's sort of the scenario. And I've been doing these missions. It happens even till today, if I mean, it's few and far between that I encounter them where I live, but they were quite, it was quite intense in the beginning. There would be like
When
hundreds
you
and hundreds in one cluster, or
well, so yeah, describe the ones that maybe you have seen or encountered. When you say in clusters, are they in etheric form? Are they in human form? And what like
I couldn't see them. I couldn't see them. I could sense them. I could smell them. But they would tell me what they look like and how many they were in the group. So let's say, for example, there was one that I remember. We went under. I was driving under this bridge in a very like rundown part of town, and it was like it just felt dark and awful, And so driving through that, I was told, like, I always have one guide, like almost like sitting on my shoulder, like telling me what's going on, right? It's like being my eyes and like telling me what's happening. And so they told me that, okay, there's a really old Draco, and he's like, the leader of this cluster, if you will, and he's like very angry and frustrated that he's been discovered, and so
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, it's like, you encounter these that don't really want to leave their position or the comfort of that empire, if you will, that they've created on the ground, right? And so these beings,
Right.
they resist, they don't want to leave. um and so, yeah. Oh, I didn't tell you about the decree, right?
Yeah, tell us about the decree. Yeah.
So, gosh, there's so many layers to this story. It's hard to put them all in sort of a cohesive manner, right? Um, so the Andromedans are leading the charge, so to speak, right? Um, in this whole ascension process and assisting. I don't know if assisting is the right word, but they are sort of guiding this whole ascension process, but at the same time, they are eliminating the Draco energies from the earth plane. And so they all came together, a group of these higher dimensional beings, and the Andromedas were like the highest within that hierarchy to take this leadership role, if you will. And among that, they formed what was known as the Galactic Federation, or what is still known as the Galactic Federation. And there are many, many factions, right? And so these groups came together, and they are here to do many things. Like some of them interact, like for example, the collective of three interact with me, and their mission is, again, it's wide and varied, right? They wrote a book with me, but at the same time they have missions that they go on and help in many ways, and then Yeshua is attached to them, and so there's many different layers, right? And so the decree from the creator that was presented to these beings to help eliminate the Draco from the earth plane was that they were no longer welcome. Like, they were allowed to have that experience and go on that extreme adventure, if you will, that I call the scenic route, right? And so that route had now reached a dead end, and they had to make a choice. They had to either go back to where they deviated from that path, or they would have to start afresh. And so that was sort of the decree that was to be presented to them. And it was no choice. It was either A or B, right? And so whether or not they had to leave the planet. And so this decree is it's like a live transmission. Anybody can present it to the Draco if they come in contact with these beings and say, here you go, this is your decree, you're no longer welcome on this earth plane. It has been decreed by the creator that, you need to leave this plane of existence. Um, but it's recommended you do that in the presence of, somebody that can actually collect these beings in a safe manner and take them off planet. Because if you go into a dangerous situation and you present them with a decree, they'll just hit you on the top of the head, right? I mean, I don't want that to happen to anybody, but knowing their track record, it's possible that they could do anything, right? So yeah, so that was the decree.
I find
Um,
that so interesting. You sent me some things, I think it was last night, about the Andromedans coming in and, yeah, helping us to get the Dracos off the Earth. Um, do you know of like any specific timelines or like coalitions or contracts the Andromedans have, currently? I mean, as we know, we're seeing a lot of the Draco scatter at this time with a lot of the collective things that are occurring
yeah.
all over the world. We're seeing a lot of systems start to fall. So it does very much like parallel what you're saying in a sense that like they are being told they have to leave the earth right now. They are being shown that they're no longer welcomed here in this earth, in this sphere of life and realm and world. Like, um, how do you think that process is unfolding? Um, as I guess they're all starting to be read their rights. And another
Yeah.
question too is when we're decreeing them or removing them off the planet. So that's how we're supposed to go about releasing Dracos is to actually remove them off the Earth, and then where do they go? You said back to the point of separation or back to quantum space dust.
Well, I think they go into a temporary sort of housing system, if you will, that is off planet. And I don't know exactly what happens during that processing time, but they are gathered in a place, and I guess their life, they do like a life review of each being. And it's almost like a point system, right? If you've done good in your life, you sort of advance slightly, or if you've done bad, you sort of go back. I think that's how they deal with it, right? And so basically they're given a choice based on the algorithm, if you will, of their past, right? And what they've accumulated on their soul's journey. And so they are taken to this temporary site, if you will, and then from there they're properly allocated to these other places. Um, yeah, I think that's how it works. But like I said, I wouldn't recommend it for anybody to take on these missions by themselves. Do it with an ascended master or somebody or a being that knows what they're doing, so that it's done in the right way.
That's a very important point is to really
Yeah.
call in and work with the Ascended Masters. Someone said to me the other day that we can only truly clear and however you feel about this and how everyone watching feels about this when I say this, but that these dark forces of evil can't really be removed without the blood of Christ or without the blood of Christ and Mary Magdalene.
I
That,
saw that. Yeah, it was a comment during
it,
our live, I think. Yeah.
yeah, so it does like parallel with Yeshua coming in and working with you to release them and remove them. Um, Maybe for everyone watching, because I know it's been really hard for I think people to wrap their mind around the concepts of the ascended masters. Like,
Mhm.
I've had a lot of people say to me, "Oh, it's a programming, oh, that's fallen. This is that, this." Um, so how do you define the ascended masters and what makes them like so important for us to work with them? Like why is this something that can really help us with releasing evil from ourselves and the planet?
Yeah, for me on a personal level, like I said earlier, I was very skeptical about these beings, you know. So for me, it was like I needed to get that comfort in my heart and know for sure that these were the right beings and who they claimed to be, right? Um, and so I went through this process of sort of elimination, if you will, in my own heart, and until I felt completely comfortable in knowing that this was actually the being that I was speaking to. But then again, that doesn't mean anything, right? Because I didn't have any reference point from my past, right, to say, okay, this is the energy of Yeshua. Because from what I got from my past was like people, went to church, they got on their knees, they begged and pleaded, and I didn't necessarily align with that. I was like, I'm not going to throw myself on the floor and kneel before you and pray to you. I said, I'm sorry, I cannot do that. It's just not my way of communicating with you. And he was like, thank you for saying that, because that's exactly what we don't want from you. You and I are on the same level. You are a light being just as much as I am a light being, and we are all sparks of the creator. And it's just that I had my experience much before you did on the earth plane, right? And so we are all on different levels of our evolution. And so the way we have it is very, very different. It's vastly different. Like every
Mhm.
single energy that was ever born and ever will be born is going to have a different experience. So it's not like I can say, oh, mine and Indy's experience is the same because we live on the earth plane at the same time. No, every single day, every single moment is different. You see things differently from I do. Even this very conversation, like you are looking at me, I'm looking at you, but you see something very different, right? So
Yeah.
our perception is very, very different. And that's the beauty of the creator, right? This being is experiencing itself through all of us in our various incarnations, right? And so the book talks about his life and how he came into being as a light being, and it journeys through his initiation as a light worker. And so it takes you through all of these experiences, and then it takes you through the incarnation on earth. It talks about his relationship with Mary Magdalene and how even that was misconstrued and misrepresented on the earth plane through our history books. And so all of these things were like ringing very true to me. It was like I in my wildest dreams would not have been able to make up a story like that. And I've never read the Bible, Indy. I might have just out of just being forced to do it as a child, going to Sunday school, you have to memorize this and you have to memorize that. And I would cry and, do it out of, just to please my parents or whatever. I never really read the Bible, honestly. And so I had, like I said, I had no reference point for what this whole Christianity was all about.
Mhm.
So this was all like a firsthand experience for me, and this being telling me its true, authentic story of its lifetime from narrating it from its own heart, right? And so, and then the story continued past the incarnation as Jesus, and then the process that it went through, or he went through, from a physical being back to a light being, and then continuing with the missions with Mary and other beings, and then graduating to where we are right now, coming full circle to where we are now with assisting with the Galactic Federation and other missions and things like that. And through the writing of this book, it was almost like that was like the main component, and then there was like everyday interactions and grid missions and all these other things, and it was like it's impossible for me to make up these as stories, right? And so and it eventually comes to you, it hits you in your heart, in your heart chakra. And because I'm somebody that works with energy, you experience it differently, right? And through meditation, you get to have this like pureness almost of that message that's coming to you. um,
Mm.
and I guess through all of this, I also fine tune my connection to the higher self, and so that was also like strengthening, and so those messages were like so clear, so pure, and so there was like absolutely no doubt in my mind that this was the energy that was presenting itself to me. And like I said, it's like they detest being prayed to, or like anybody like prostrating and begging them for all sorts of things, which is
Mm.
essentially what the Christian religion is, really. I don't know how you feel about
You
it, but
you
that's
said that they detest it, like
they
they
don't
don't
like
want
it.
or need you to glorify them, is
Yeah,
what you mean? Like
yeah,
worship essentially. They just want you to know and feel their presence in your heart.
yeah, yeah, basically. Because it to me, it's like Christianity instills this energy or this image of, or the way in which you need to approach this being, or how you need to
Mm,
connect with this being. And it's garbage, essentially. Really,
yeah.
it's really the inversion of what this being truly wants to be known as.
Yeah.
There's such a pureness to it, and that has been totally perverted and inverted by Christianity and the practices that we've been, you know, um, that's been created for us to follow, really.
Yeah. So much of that persecution, crucifixion, and stigmata wounding that I think we carry. I know in the beginning of my awakening too, I think I had a lot of memories where I was taken to the crucifixion and I was having multiple different kinds of experiences of that moment, whether I was felt like I was remote viewing it and looking in from the outside, or how all of a sudden I became Mother Mary myself, and now I know the position of the grief of, you know, um, bearing the loss of her son, and just like a lot of the uh, just from the mother, the Divine Mother's perspective. And then I felt like I also became Christ at certain times where I was like reliving the memories as if they were also my own. Um, and all of this happening simultaneously and individually, which gives credit to our multidimensionality and the eternal nature of our existence. But how do you think that is then? I mean that those memories, because I feel like they're everybody's memories too at the same time. Like they're all ours. There are all humanity's shared experience of that. And did Christ ever um, transmit any messages around those things that occurred in his life? And
You
uh,
mean about the crucifixion?
yeah.
Yeah, the book goes into quite detailed, quite a detailed description of those days, and reaching up to his transition to the light realms. Energetically, I would say that because of that trauma that happened during that time and that entire episode, if you will, right from his, being captured by the Romans and the torture and all of that, like that trauma is still in the field on the earth plane.
Yeah.
And so him and Mary are still clearing the field and releasing those energies. And a lot of times they come back for these clearings, to release themselves of that burden which they still carry, right? Um,
Mm.
and so these are opportunities for them to progress as a soul too, and leave all of this behind. Like once you leave the earth plane, there is a time and a period of time where you do like a life review, and you go through that period where you resolve all of the trauma that was upon the past life that you just had. But in this case, because this energy was so big and um, so impactful, right? It took it's still taking a lot for that energy to be healed, right? And so it's what I'm told is that there's still like impressions or shadows of that energy still within the field of that trauma.
Mm,
And so that's still, yeah, that's still needing to be resolved.
yeah. And I think we work on that a lot when we do those J seal removals, and it's like
Yes.
we're trying to remove that stigmata of the crucifixion wound out of our body. I'll just throw this out there. I had someone come to me one time and said, we don't have to remove the crucifixion wounding because Christ died for that, like our sins type of thing. So we shouldn't have to remove the wounding of that out. And then I thought about that and I'm like, well, maybe, but then also after the fact, there were so many things that occurred, especially with the alteration of with the Council of Nicaea and the King James Bible and all of this. We know so many things were distorted. And I also feel that the seal system is implanted into the biblical text itself. Like everything's worded in a way to actually install the reversals into you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how do we get to the true teachings of Christ? How do we get to the true? I came across the Gospel of Peace. This is one of my favorite things. I don't know if you've read the Gospel of Peace, but
No.
it has a whole bunch of his like. I don't know how close it is to his original words, but felt like it was really close, and it's something I like to listen to at night before I go to bed. But he talks about getting down to the river and cleansing the soul of demonic spirits, every single day fasting. So like his teachings are just, they're so spiritually pure and divine. And there really wasn't all these rules. Like you said, there's no rules to like, to how we go about this. It's truly um, a teaching for to become the enlightened ascended master yourself. That is his true teaching.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How did you like interpret his true messages and his true teachings and all this stuff he was transmitting to you? Like, what would you say was his like most authentic message with that?
Well,
Like,
I would say it was just the pureness of it would be just the impression that it was so easy to connect with the creator. Like, once you develop a, a basic practice within yourself, like yoga, meditation, whatever it is, connecting to your higher self, you are able to make that instant connection with the creator. And he talked about that in just, you know I don't know what the words were, but um like there's so many different stories. I can't think of one at the top of my head, but it was all very simple, logical sort of ways to connect with the creator, right? And he impersonated that in his, like, he went about telling stories to the people, right, in a way that was relatable to them. And so he was like, I'm like you, all you have to do is just step away from your life and just be in those quiet moments, and that is your connection to the creator, right? And that applies even today, right? If you just stay still for a few minutes, you can still find that space within your heart and connect to the creator, right? So yeah, it's hard to put into words. I know I'm stumbling here, but there are certain pages in the book which I'm sure I'm not recalling at the moment, but it clearly talks about what his pure teachings were. Um, but it all breaks down to the very simplistic way of really just emanating that light of the creator and having that experience in the flesh as a light being.
yeah, it's truly such a purifying connection, and I think that's the path to the new earth. That's the path to transformation on this planet is by people really being able to embrace and bring that into their hearts and truly waking up to their spiritual powers and enlightenment and their gifts. It's such a profound experience going to Kauai. Like I really opened up my Christed femininity in a way that I never experienced before. Like the powers of those islands just infused me and repaired my 12th dimensional light body, which, yeah, I'm recognizing it's harder to sustain not being on the island. I got to get back to the island. But yeah, it does seem to be, it's harder to support that on the mainland type of thing because it's a seems to be a collaboration of the Earth's energy and the land's energy, and then also yours. So it's
Yeah.
just like if the land isn't healthy, we can't really be healthy. If
Yeah.
the waters aren't healthy, we can't be healthy. Like so
And
yeah.
you have to remember, Indy, you probably touched into a very pureness upon the earth. That energy was probably one of the only living places on the earth that retained its purity, so to speak, right? Because now wherever you go, we're still in that third dimensional, energy, and we're trying to get back to that fifth dimensional energy, which was the original frequency of the earth plane, right? So yeah, we need to get back to Hawaii and get to that frequency all over the
Yeah,
plane,
we
right?
got to
We
get it
need
upgraded.
to.
Well, you have like a beautiful website. I'm gonna switch over to that and just show all of our guests here. So if they're interested in um getting your book, they can find it at progressingtothefifth.com.
Yeah,
And your books are here. Okay. All that is. And the voice of an angel. Oh my gosh, they're such beautiful covers. Great cover
thank you.
designs.
I did them all in uh, Indie. I did the writing, I did the editing, I did the designing.
Wow, you did amazing.
Thank you.
I love the colors too. Um, yeah, that's awesome. I really would like to get this one. And okay, takes it over to Amazon, so you can get it at Amazon.
And it's
Um,
available both as a Kindle and a paperback.
okay. It's at the back of the book. Um, and then this one is your focus on this book was a little bit different. You said you channeled the three.
Yeah, the collective of three. So these beings came to me, as I outlined earlier, right? And they came together as known as the collective of three, but individually, one is a Palladian, one is an Arcturian, and the other is from the 12th dimension. Um, that being from the 12th dimension was temporarily um, living on Saturn as an as a refugee, if you will, from the wars with the Draco. So they were that initial entourage that landed many, many thousands of years ago on the Himalayas that you would probably consider as the rishis,
Mm.
or I guess not the rishis, but the energies that the rishis encountered, right? The beings that the rishis encountered, and that whole lineage and how that came about. So this being is connected to me as a soul family. So it's considered as my primary guide, if you will. And so yeah, they came together and they wanted to help me first of all understand my root and my energy and where I came from, and then just give some insight into their lives and what it is they do and how they fit into this entire um, ascension journey, if you will. And
It's
so they,
interesting how a lot of them are like rehabilitated though. Like they're
yeah,
rehabilitated souls. Like they're um like as if maybe they've lived here and have taken the lives as the Dracos and then they're like rehabilitated through incarnation cycles and then come back in other lifetimes and have the ascended experience.
well, the Palladians they have their own physical planes, right? So like the Earth, the Pleiades has like an experience within the fifth dimension, if you will. So people like can go through a similar experience like we would on the Pallades, but it's a different sort of perspective because their focus is on just pure love, right? And so the lens of their life, if you will, or their experience there would be through the lens of love. And so you experience something, say you want to experience what it feels like to be a mother on the Pleiades. So you would be looking at it through the lens of a fifth dimensional energy that's focused on love for a child through the mother's eyes. So it's a very fine-tuned sort of energy, right? That energy would go through that lifetime with that focus. So in that way, there's many, many different ways in which a soul can experience itself. And so this being from Arcturus is an ancient scholar, if you will. I think of this energy as like an, that movie, the character Gandalf, with the gray hair and the gray beard,
Yeah.
the Lord of the Rings, I think it is, right?
Yeah.
So that's sort of the impression I get from this being. But of course, they from what I've heard and from other channel beings, and even this being has sort of shown me, like through my research on the internet, they have a blue appearance, and so they don't have hair. So there goes my image of him, right? But when you talk about an ancient being, that's what came to mind for me, right? But this being had so much just pearls of wisdom, to give, and along the way, just guidance about how to go through life, and how to deal with this ascension process, and again, coming to me from their perspective of being a geneticist, or exploring their life experiences through many different lenses, right? So the book essentially is like, it's like a historical book. It takes you through the creation story, and um, you know all of the adventures of Adam and Eve and Lucifer, and the archangels, and all of the early incarnations of how the evolution basically took place. And then it brings you full circle to where we are today, right? And with the Galactic Federation and all of those experiences. And then it takes you through the Draco Wars and the alignment with
Mm.
the Orion Grays. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot of little snippets in there, but it gives you a clear picture of, how things progressed, and all the little kinks, if you will, and how we arrived to be in this position that we are at right now.
And yeah, it's so important for us to be able to get a lot of this history too, like galactic history, Orion history, Draco history. It really helps fill in a lot of
Yeah,
the
I'm just
blanks.
flipping through the book. So they have an entire chapter about entrapment and soul scraping, right? That the Draco did. Um,
Mm.
so they address that as well.
Okay.
And Indy, while this was happening, like I've got countless videos on my YouTube channel. I don't know if I sent that link to you.
Oh
Um,
yes, I did want to highlight that. And just for everyone watching, you can find Raquel's channel at All That Is. And yeah, we've been collaborating so much. She's been collaborating with me. She's been collaborating with Noko. And so it's been really fun. So yeah, if everyone can go subscribe to her channel and let's help get these subscribers up. We're at 576. Maybe we can get it to 1,000 because I think it's at 1,000. You can
yeah,
monetize your channel, all of that. So yeah, we'd really appreciate everyone's love and support. And yeah, I think you've posted up some of the videos that we've recently done together. And I just have to say, it's been so fun bringing you in for our roundtables and stuff and all these healings and grid clearings we're doing. Because I mean, yeah, you just really have come through. Like,
thank you. No,
you've
it's been
really
fun for me
impressed me.
too.
I'm
Thank
like,
you.
yeah, she knows. She knows what's going on. So it's so important for us women right now to really be, I think, empowered with our voices and, speaking and sharing our work. And because it's really about the feminine wisdom and enlightenment right now, that if
Mhm.
humanity would embrace more of this, we really could be a lot further on our way to New Earth because we have all of
Absolutely.
the keys that unlock it.
Absolutely. No, it's so true. And it's just hard for people to take that leap of faith, right? And it was for me too. It was a huge leap of faith for me too. And I'm still learning. I'm still, there are still, things that I get stuck up on. And um, so it is hard because we've been so indoctrinated into this way of thinking, right? And they've done a really good job of completely averting our view to their way of thinking, right? If you think about it, like they've had hundreds and hundreds of years to practice, right? Whereas we have one lifetime, they live on forever, right? And so it's like they outlive us. I don't know how long their
Yeah.
lifetimes are, but I think it's, I don't know, 6 or 7 to 1 or something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so it's impossible for us to even fathom that, right? And so they've had like all of this time to fine tune their depravity, if you will, in such a way that they've fine tuned it to make us think that we are having a fantastic life, that we are living fulfilled lives, and this is the way it's meant to be, right? But that's just the inversion, and so it's hard even for me as a practitioner, as a healer, to approach people and say, sorry, everything you've been doing is wrong. Like, how do you tell people that, in a very kind way, that this is just, um it's a tragedy, but at the same time it's like we need to approach this in a way um that comes across as, from the heart, and from the purity of what the creator wants us to do, right? Because this mission is coming from that energy, and it's coming from a place where a clearing needs to be done, and a restoration has to be done. Just looking
Yeah.
at the backdrop of your picture, like, those are very dark images, right? And we don't want to go there, right?
Well, we've been going there this last
I
week.
know.
We've been going there.
I know.
And
But
thank you
in
for
a way
hearing the
that we
call,
need
sister.
need
Thank
it,
you for
right?
hearing it.
Yeah,
Yes. I,
yeah,
I'm just so thankful that you're strong enough to speak to the issues with me. Um, you know, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for more strong divine feminines who are opinionated and have the audacity to say it. You know what I
I don't
mean?
know if I'm all of that, but but yeah, I'll
Well,
I'll
you
speak my
you
truth.
are, but in your Christed just beauty of your soul,
Yeah, yeah,
in your gentle way. Like you're not, bossy and domineering by any means, but you are strong in what you know. And
yeah.
that's
Well, I think I let all my wrath out on Facebook. All of the memes, and if I'm feeling like really crappy about something, I just let it all out on Facebook. And most often I don't get any responses there, but oh well, it's out now.
I'll tell you where you will get some responses. In the singularity. That's what I'm calling X. X is the singularity.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh my gosh, I've been on that one. Well, I hope that we continue to do shows together. I really love this roundtable energy we have going on right now, how it's like we're pulling in all the like current topics and we're just like bringing in so much, and it's really good to discuss these things with,
yeah,
like-minded people who we can identify, we're all looking at it like what's the global agenda and what do we feel about this? What do we feel about that? What do we trust? What do we not trust? What is okay? What do we not think is okay? And
yeah.
like kind of create this framework where we all can kind of exist in and through to I guess digest these challenging times. But I really see such a beautiful timeline unfolding. Like we're getting so much closer to like more freedom.
Well, we
Um,
have made an impact, I think, in the last few days itself, right? To me, it was like, and just that direct conversation or that download that I sort of gave you an excerpt of, like right after I got that information, it's like Trudeau resigned, and um, well, what was the other thing that happened? Oh, Zuckerberg, right? On Facebook,
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
wow, these are huge, huge shifts, right? And so it's like these things are coming fast and furious, and it's like, yeah, it's happening. And they told me like, and I know you asked me this question before, and I'm sorry I didn't address it. Like, they didn't necessarily give me a timeline of when these things are going to happen. And you and I still have that um, free will, and so it sort of feeds into the free will of the entire planet as well. And that's why it's important for all of us to raise our vibration and, in a way, speak as one voice, or the more voices that speak the same language is when, we can go to that next level, right? And so roundtables like this bring us up to that level, bring us into that, like we are shining a light on the darkness. And then people get to that understanding, and then they are like, okay, I'm ready to move to the next step. This happened, but I'm willing to take it into my being, heal it, and move forward, right? And so that's
Yeah.
the way forward, right? And we have to heal, we have to heal, we have to keep doing that as we go forward. And for me, that's been my process for the last, I would say, 10 years. It's like sometimes I get tired. I'm like, holy shit, how much more do I have to clear up? It's like, how many lifetimes of this garbage that I have to clear up, but there's, even if you've cleared out the heavy part of it, right? There's always impressions that still remain. So it's an ongoing process. But if we can get to that stage of clearing up the really, you know, the sticky part of these things, the really difficult ones. And I think we've gone into the most difficult one with the sexual predators, and the energy of the child molestation and all of that. That's the dirtiest underbelly, I think, right? um, so if we can extract all of that, then I think we are well on our way to getting all of this work done.
It almost feels like we've penetrated the Draco
Yeah,
walls and barriers, like as if they have had like defensive or reflective shields, and it feels like we're penetrating now their layers, their labyrinths, their underground facilities, their underground tunnels, and
yeah,
like we're penetrating them with the light, and the light's
yeah,
coming.
absolutely.
Yeah.
With that 10th gate clearing, they told me that they essentially cleared all of those areas. Like, I think we went through the map together, right? So it was like that North African region, North India, Pakistan, some areas of China. So all of that was like a huge blitz. So when these sort of these blitzes happen, and from our perspective, the grid work happens, they lead into other clusters, right? It's not like, okay, they are just living in that little corner of their world, being happy and doing something. No, they have connections all over the place, and they have the tunnel systems in the physical world, right? And so, like that, their energy has these different tentacles all over the globe.
Mm.
And so, if we attack or surround a stronghold with the light workers are able to trace the other tentacles, and that leads them to the other hubs and the other clusters, right? And so, even without our help, they are able to go and clear these other clusters that led off, for example, from the 10th gate that we worked on.
Yeah.
So
So
it's good.
what do
Yeah.
you think in terms of your evaluation of the 10th gate? There's definitely still a lot more work to be done there. Um, do you think we should just kind of keep working on the 10th gate and extracting them off the earth, extracting them out of this universe or out of this multiverse, or how far do we take them?
I think it's done.
Is there a trash can out there?
I think it's done. I think it's done. The Draco have been taken out, like, from that location. What I understand is that they have, like, layers, right, to their hierarchy, right? So they were essentially ruling from behind the leaders of the Earth plane. So prime example would be Justin Trudeau, for example, right? So they rule from behind him as to what they want the population of Canada, say for example, to to do, or how they want that population to behave, right? And so when the Draco are removed, Justin Trudeau is standing by himself, and it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I don't have any support now. So he becomes that helpless puppet, right? And so that's what's happening right now. These leaders are essentially without that backing. And so we need to expose them at this stage for what it is that they're doing, and they will just fall away.
Yeah.
So that's what we need to do. We need to go after the energies on the earth plane that are causing all this ruckus.
Well, thank you so much for coming on
You.
and speaking about this. I'm really happy we got to deliver this message today about the Dracos and what's occurring and what to do with them and how do you work with Christ. And I mean, it's so in alignment to where we are with everything. It's such a needed message. I think people are, really waking up to these reptilian beings and these kinds and these types and, how do we go about all that? So, yeah, guys, I really recommend getting Raquel's books. I think that they can really clarify some things in terms of ascension and um, how to process everything that's occurring in terms of our ancient human galactic origins. So thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, I look forward to doing more shows in the future. Thank you
Thank
everyone
you.
for watching.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Raquel.